I'm 27 years old. I was born in Chillán, in the A region, in 1986. All my family is from there, and I came in 2008 to Santiago to study theater. As an actor, I try to take theater in the show. So then there are club shows like the ones I perform in Fausto. And there are other things that I do with a partner that's called Colectivo La Rufiana. The two of us make theatrical performances. No, there are few people that can difference what it is. I think television tries to lump everyone together, and people believe what's on TV, and television lies, in my opinion. They talk about transvestite, but transvestism is one thing and transformism is another. Crossdresser are characters you play at night for a show. You put makeup on, you get dressed, you transform yourself into the character, show is over, you take this off, and live your life as a man as you are. Yes, there are these cross-dressing performers on TV now, in Talento Chileno and talent shows, and it's like people started understanding a little what they are. It sees it as art, but not before. But it is in part something new, but just in part, I think. If you don't get near them, they support you, but just in part. There is always this, they say it but they don't mean it. My family knows I'm gay, but my dad doesn't know that I transform myself into a woman. Yes, it's still a taboo. I don't hide my stuff. I mean, I've been working in a restaurant for 2 months now as a waiter, and everybody knows I perform. Everybody knows I'm gay. They asked me, and I told them. If you ask me, I'll tell you.
Crossdressers are people who adopt physical and psychological characteristics usually attributed to the opposite gender as their customs and attitudes. Usually, people don't know or can't see the difference between cross-dressing and transvestism. A cross-dresser is a person who creates a character for a show. When he finishes his presentation, he returns to his own gender and makes his life as a normal person. However, this doesn't mean all cross-dressers are homosexual. A lot of them are heterosexual and even have children. A transvestite lives his life as a person from the opposite gender, taking his cultural elements, tastes, customs, even clothes. This may happen because a man feels like a woman and he wants to be a woman. Sometimes, on the most of the cases, this may take to these people to prostitution. Through time, there exists a lot of historical characters who appeal to cross-dressing, laying behind conventional social rules. As an example, in Greek culture, there exists the story about Thetis, Achilles' mother, who dressed her son as a woman to avoid he was recruited into the army. Or the process when a woman, that is Juana, known as Benedict III, became into the first female pope in the year 855, while she lied to the church dressing as a man to be elected as pope. One of the most popular cases of cross-dressing is Hua Mulan in China. She dressed as a man to get into the army instead of her father. Even in the world of music, one of the best musicians in history, Freddie Mercury, performs the video of the song I Want to Break Free, dressed as a woman. As you can see, this is not something that has only happened in the last few years. This has been present all over the history and in the most unexpected places and institutions.
Cross-dressing has been present all around the world, and East isn't an exception. In Japanese culture, there are two theaters that use this gender change in their plays: Kabuki theater and Takarazuka. Kabuki is the most popular of traditional styles of Japanese drama and started in 6013 when a Japanese shrine maiden started to dance to save money for her shrine. A few years later, this art became very popular in the Edo period. Female performers played both men and women in comic plays about ordinary life, but 20 years later they were banned for being too erotic. And then were young male actors, the ones doing male and female roles, but they were being eligible for prostitution, so they switched to grown-up male actors. Since then, Kabuki started to be played by entire families till nowadays, and the males of the family have to achieve the perfect movements of a female, and for that they must train for years. In response to this all-male theater, Takarazuka was born in 1913. Ichiyo Kobayashi decided to create Takarazuka because he thought that Kabuki theater was old and elitist. Takarazuka is a musical theater troupe where women play adult roles in lavish, Broadway-style productions of Western-style musicals. Before becoming a member, a woman must train for 2 years in the Takarazuka Music School, but only 40 to 50 people are accepted every year. Today, both of these arts are very well seen in Japanese society, and they take this as part of their history and culture. There are more examples in Eastern culture, and one of them is the Beijing Opera or Peking Opera in China. As in Kabuki, women were banned from acting in the plays, so the female roles were taken by young men. Cross-dressing has been an integral part of Peking Opera from the beginning and remains so today. Nowadays, just few women participate in this traditional style of Chinese opera.
In the Western, this subculture has been present since long ago, with Shakespeare and Greek plays where men had to do cross-dressing to perform female roles, because women were not allowed to be on stage. Through time, transformism had an important exponent that started to dress like a woman. This was Leopoldo Frugoli, Italian actor, singer, and cross-dressing performer. He traveled through different cities. Among the most important are London, Paris, Vienna, Barcelona, Madrid, Berlin, and St. Petersburg, showing his skills. He decided to quit in 1922 when he was in the highlight of his career here in Latin America. In the middle of 19th century, British named them drag queens. This means men in women's clothes. The cross-dressing subculture has been present in our time for several years. In Western, this is accepted because this is considered a way of expression. But there are countries where this type of art is considered an aberration and there is still the prejudice about sexual acts. One case is Russia, that don't let them be free of expressing themselves because this is considered as part of the gay culture that's illegal in this country. But there are countries where this is considered expression. In the USA, they have a reality show named RuPaul Drag Race, a program just not watched by gay, even heterosexual people do. In Latin America are countries where let them free of showing their art. In Argentina, Colombia, and Brazil, they have academies to prepare people in the art of cross-dressing. Even Cuba, usually seen as an authoritarian country, doesn't have the prejudice with transformism.
We have plenty of examples of these performers in Chile. The first one was the Blue Ballet, in allusion to the popular football team. The second one was Las Yeguas del Apocalipsis, that also worked as a collective in the 70s. Then we have Francis François, known as the matriarch of transformism in Chile. La Pola is a famous comedian on television. And then we have Connie Dacardil, that was a contestant in a TV show that died last year. In spite of this, in terms of perception, Chilean society is far behind of those already explained. Socially speaking, cross-dressing is one of many taboo subjects in our culture. Even nowadays, in a time when social movements are in a constant struggle for equality of rights, transformism tends to be relegated. On the contrary of other countries in Latin America, like Argentina or Brazil, academies or schools that teach this performance art don't exist in Chile. It shouldn't seem as shameful. Because of this, drag queens usually have to hide their alter egos from their everyday life. Another important element is the fact that in our country, transformism is part of the gay scene. This happened because gay people were the ones who inserted it into our society. This didn't happen in other countries, where it's seen as a regular job. Around the world, many heterosexual people, even with families, work as cross-dressing performers. Chile is not yet aware of this difference. This layer of awareness can be explained by the huge influence the Catholic Church has in the country. Historically, it has been the biggest opponent of transformism since the Bible states it's an abomination. Chilean society tends to relate cross-dressing with prostitution and transgenderism. This situation happened in many countries before, and that is the reason why new terminology appeared in order to make the distinction. The big problem in our country, in order to be able to see that distinction, is a lack of information and discussion about the topic. It is impossible to see it as art as long as prejudice blinds people. And the more we look the other way, the more difficult it will get to change that prejudice.
Yes, cross-dressing is an art for me. It's an art because you just don't dress as a woman. There are a lot of things behind it. You leave part of your life behind. It's a form of expression because cross-dressing has ways to transform you into a woman. The ones who have more time in this, the older ones, have a background behind their characters. Art in here in Chile is to live your life for your art. Most of the performers have more woman clothes than men's, because they are mostly show stuff. They are thinking all the time about their characters. They make sacrifices for their characters. Everything that is art is difficult here, not just cross-dressing. It's hard sometimes, but just as hard as everything, it's difficult to be a singer, it's difficult to be an actor.
In order to conclude, we can say that cross-dressing has its begin in art. For example, in the Greek theater or in Japan with the Kabuki theater until reach today what we know as drag queens. Drag queens, or transformistas in Spanish, are seen by society in very different ways, such as high-quality artists with their own schools and theaters, and, on the other hand, as prostitutes, people with mental illness or fetishistics. But also there are other forms of cross-dressing such as travestism that differs from drag queens because their objective is to have a sexual arousal. Magnus Hirschfeld coined the word transvestism to refer to people who have a sexual interest in cross-dressing. He used it to describe people who habitually wear feminine clothing. By doing this, a lot of people were left out without a term to describe themselves. Heterosexual men who habitually wore women clothing without fetishistic intentions were left without a term for them. They felt rejected by this term, so they coined the term cross-dressing. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association defines transvestic fetishism as a psychiatric diagnosis that it is a paraphilia when men use women clothing looking for a sexual arousal. It is different for men that use women clothing with entertainment purposes. We're talking about men who do this in the most strict secret because they have a marriage and family and children. It is also sometimes leads to another paraphilia that is called sadomasochism. They are considered a subculture because they are a small group of people that share some interests, costumes and tastes, and they are subordinated to a main culture. Ignorance leads to prejudice and prejudice to rejections. We can say that most of people in our country can't even distinguish transformism as a way of art from travestism as a way of sexual expressions. Without making this differentiation, we can't even start making bigger differentiations. Recognize that cross-dressing is something that happens in our society is the first step of include these people and also understand our society.
I love it. It feels me. Now I realize that I decided to study theater for this, to perform cross-dressing. I perform in plays, in theaters, but in the most of the plays I've done recently, it's been as female characters. They call me for my character Crystal to be in plays. I see it as a form of express of free what you feel. Because myself as Jose, I sometimes suppress something because of society. I repress myself guided by the mass. Even though I try to be different, at the end you end up being nothing special. My character, Crystal, is more glamorous. It's kind of a rocker, kind of a seductress. It's darker. Cross-dressing for me is the way I say what I think and what I want to express.